grab your favorite alcoholic or non-alcoholic beverage, drink responsibly, do not drink and drive, and enjoy the latest episode of Why Complain When You Can Whine. Welcome to Why Complain When You Can Whine, making sense of the senseless. Join us as we attempt to make sense of toxic nonsense while drinking wine, or any other beverage is fine. I am Dr. Jody Larman, licensed clinical psychologist in the state of California, and anything and everything we discuss on this podcast is purely for education, psychoeducation, and entertainment purposes only. And you'd think I would get that right every time, and I just don't. But that's
mouthful.
It's been a long day. So today I am drinking, I thought this was really cute. It's called Odd Lot.
Oh,
And I think it's a lot. Yeah, Odd Lot. And it's 2020 from Monterey, California. And it's a red blend of Cab and Syrah. And I just thought it was really cute. It's got a little airplane and two little guys driving around and drinking, flying around and drinking. That's great. Please don't drink and drive or fly. Or
yeah. Don't follow the instructions on the label, people.
I think they did it after. I'm going to say they did it after. And my cup, my sister and my niece gave this to me for the holidays, and it says, pause off my wine.
Oh, I like that. I'm going to have to get one of those eventually. That's so cute. Excellent.
And now, so happy, so excited to introduce our new co-host.
Thank you, Dr. Jody Larman. My name is Brianne Burry. I am a licensed registered a psychotherapist from Vancouver, British Columbia, up in Canada. So I'm just directly north of Miss Jody. And I'm super honored that she's asked me to be her co-host on Why Complain When You Can Whine, because this is a great podcast.
And this is the plan is from here on out, again, every 2 weeks, we're hoping, maybe once a week if there's a really good something happening in the world. So this week
we are going to be discussing one of my favorite topics, and this is going to be quite a controversial topic. In fact, it's right up there with the lovely abortion and other some heavy duty topics, and that is gun control. And what's going to be interesting with this podcast is we come from neighboring countries. So I'm Canadian, Jody is American, and we have very different gun laws. So we're going to be going over some various topics within this topic based on politics, belief systems, as well as kind of psychosocial structure, and the absence of fear in Canada versus the US. So it's going to be a broad topic. Now, that being said, I know Dr. Larman, I can see your face right now, is that we have very similar views on this topic. And, we like people jumping on and giving their personal feedback, but we know that this is going to cause a lot of heat. And there's going to be a lot of people that disagree with us, and that's okay. Everybody's entitled to their opinion and their beliefs and their thoughts, but so feel free to jump on here and give feedback or give your 2 cents and your thoughts. But yeah, I just think that this is a really important topic because it seems to be one that consistently rears its ugly head down in the south of the border for me, that we don't see here in Canada. And there's going to be a lot of, and trust me, I've talked about this personally on my own platform, my own social media platform, many times after there's a mass shooting. And it always seems to be the same kinds of comments and the same people that get on with the same arguments over and over and over again. So we're going to go over that.
And I do want to add, if you are going to put your 2 cents in, that is completely fine, but please have an argument with it. Don't just, you're not going to come after my gun and stuff like that. It's like, we're not talking about taking everybody's guns away, although there should be some people who never touch a gun. But this is not about America, my freedom, my rights. So that's not an argument. If you want to come in and discuss civil discourse, we are always open to civil discourse. because
But please use a rational argument is what she's stating. Basically, we need rational thinking here. And unfortunately, with this debate in particular, we get a lot of irrational comments and a lot of irrational thinking. And I'll give some examples that I've run into as well. And again, and it's not to disrespect somebody's views and perspective, but again, make sure that you're using something that has logic, because a lot of these arguments that tend to come in that go against the idea of having gun control or more regulations or regulatory stuff around the guns in the US, there's no logic.
And you just said it. We are talking about gun control. We are not talking about banishing guns from the face of the earth, which for some reason, I hear this. Every time you talk about gun control, it's, oh my God, they're coming for our guns. Oh my God, they want to eliminate all of this. I personally have a gun. I have a 38. It was my husband's. I learned to shoot it. The one good thing about my ex, well, I don't even want to say that's a good thing, but my ex being law enforcement, he taught me how to take it apart, how to clean it, how to handle it, and how to shoot it. So we're not talking about, oh my God, you are such a horrible person for having a gun. That's not what's being said.
No, definitely not, because there's no judgment for anybody owning a firearm. It's just in what kind of regulatory or just regulations do you have versus not having. Now, where do we start with this? Because there's so many different ways we can get into this topic. Jody, where do you want to start?
Though, did I not see you pour a drink?
Oh yeah, I did. Sorry, my bad. I'm drinking a little bit of spice. I haven't gotten over my Christmas spiced rum yet, so I've got some Kraken. It's not wine. I ran out. Kraken rum.
Oh, okay.
I ran out of wine, so sorry, guys.
Yeah, I like that glass. Is that one that doesn't supposed to spill?
No, it just leans over and it just sits kind of like this. Yeah, it's cool.
I guarantee you I can make it spill. I can make anything spill, break, fall, all of that. I'm really good at that. Sorry to change the direction for a minute, but I knew I saw you pour something.
Yes, I did. Sorry, people. I have my drink. Don't worry. I'm not cheating.
I don't want to look like the only one here.
Drinking, no.
So where do we want to start? One thing is really, I think this is a really important place to start. Is it okay if I call you Bree?
Oh, of course.
Okay. So Bree and I were talking initially about doing this topic, and I thought, New Year's, it's kind of a heavy topic for New Year's. And we decided to wait until the next mass shooting happened.
Yeah.
And then right after New Year's, when kids went back to school, there was a school shooting.
Lo and behold.
Ironic, sadly, or I guess. Yeah. So we thought, wow, we didn't have to wait long.
No, we didn't. And that's the point right there.
Right. So
that's a great starting point. It kind of proves our point as to why we want to talk about this, is that we didn't even have to wait more than a week and a half to 2 weeks after we decided that that's the next topic we wanted to talk about for there to be another mass shooting. Now, this is the sad part, and I'm going to bring up some things. And like I said, this is a bit of a heated topic, and I know some people may get offended by this. And this is not to generalize, and it's not to stereotype at all. Okay. I have so many friends in the US. I love my American comrades. I like just south of the border. I love traveling to the States. I love my American friends. But as a country, and if you look at it from a global perspective, okay, from country to country to country, the US is the only country that has this problem. And again, I know that's going to raise some shackles with some people, but and when I get the kind of arguments like, but Canada's population is smaller than the US and blah, 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 blah. And it says, it has nothing to do with population. It has nothing to do with mental illness. We're going to talk about all of that. But why is it that the US, out of all of the countries in the world, has more children dying by guns than anywhere else in the world? I'm not talking about South America and Colombia and places that have drug wars and cartel and gun issues in regards to that. There's lots of shootings down there. I'm talking about school shootings where children go to school where they should be safe, but they're not. And parents have to wake up in fear every day of their life that they send their children to school because they don't know if they're going to come home alive or dead because there's been another mass shooting. Why is it that this, and every other country says this, you will hear it from Europe, the UK, countries within Europe, Australia, New Zealand, Canada, like China, India, like, again, India has a population in the billions. It far surpasses China, which far surpasses the US population, and they still do not have children dying by guns like they do in the US.
Now, the definition of a mass shooting, where did I just have that? Is 4 or more persons.
Mhm.
So a mass shooting, 4 or more persons, and excluding shootings associated with organized crime, gangs, or drug wars. In 2023 in the US, there were 656 mass shootings.
Wow.
656. Now, I'm pretty sure this, yeah, US, 656. By the numbers, there were 656 mass shootings. That's up from 647 in 2022. Now, think about this. We're talking 647 shootings of 4 or more people at one time.
Mm-hmm.
There's 365 days of the year.
Mm-hmm.
So that's more than, that's what, 2 a year? Or sorry, they just clocked me out of this, asking me to be on their list. It's like,
Yeah,
I'm reading. No, I don't need a pop-up.
no.
So yeah, so that was okay. In 2021, it was worse, believe it or not. 689 mass shootings in the United States. Now, let me see. There was 36,366 injuries in 2023. Now, injuries can be anything.
Mm-hmm.
And that doesn't mean that that person just walked away, that their life is unscathed now.
No.
So anybody who's like, but they didn't die, that's not an argument.
No.
And the number of gun violence deaths has also shot up from 12,356 in 2014 to 47,300 in 2021 and 2022.
Yeah. Yep.
So.
Yeah. And again, this is global news. It's publicized. Anytime the US has a mass shooting, everybody hears about it around the world. And we're all left sitting in disbelief, being like, they still remain the country that has this problem alone, and yet nobody else does, because we have laws and regulations in place. As I do my little thing and my balloons go up.
No, I was talking to a client one time and he went like that, and it was like,
and then all of a sudden the balloons go up.
Like, I didn't do that. I wish I could. I would do that every time a client does well. I'd be like,
so yes, my point to that is, because of the gun laws that we have here in Canada, Australia, the US, everywhere else around the world, and yet people continue this argument that guns don't kill people, people kill people. And it infuriates me. It's not that that's wrong. People do kill people. People behind the weapon kill the person. But the mass destruction of the weapons that are available to US citizens that are not available to any other citizen in any other country around the world is what does this mass destruction in such a short period of time can't be done anywhere else. When people say to me, knives, you can't kill the amount of people with a knife that you can kill with a semi-automatic to fully automatic weapon, whether it's an assault weapon or not. I've shot an AR-15. I know how to shoot a gun. I've gone to a gun range. My dad's a hunter.
well, anybody
military.
But anybody that says, well, Canada has mass shootings. Let me say this. There's been 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 mass shootings in Canada in 2023 with 5, 4, 11 deaths. We had what? Did I say 47,000?
47,000. Now everybody's going to go based on population here. Okay. So I'm going to say that Canada's population is the total population of the state of California. We have over 30 million people, 30 million people, whatever it is. Literally, we have the same population as just the state of California. Yes, your population is massive in comparison to Canada, for sure. But again, mass shootings here, again, consisting of 4 or more people, are usually gang related. We still have guns, people. Bad people get guns. They can get them on the black market. They can get them. But the way that our laws and the regulations that you and the things and the hoops you have to jump through to get a gun. And I'm saying this because this is what saves me as a mother, saving like and sending my children to school. I don't have this fear that I'm born into. My children aren't born into the same fear that you're born into in the US. And I've had these debates or these conversations with other fellow Americans that are like, what about, your mom walking down the street and aren't you scared for her life? Don't you need a gun to protect yourself? No, it's unheard of, for one thing. Don't walk alone at night. Use common sense. But when we're talking about mass shootings, my children do not go to school in fear. I do not send my children to school. I'm not in fear. It doesn't happen here because you have to go through a extensive criminal record check, a mental health check that take months by the RCMP, which is the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, in order to find out if you are even eligible to require a firearm of any kind. We're talking hunting weapons, rifles, right? Handguns and different things. They're in most cases prohibited. The only people that technically have guns here, unless you are an affiliated gang member, is military or police, or if you're a hunter.
Weapon types used in mass shootings in the United States between 1982 and December 2023. 166 handguns for 116 incidents, rifles, shotguns. Okay, that's what they do it as. Shotguns, rifles, and handguns.
Mm-hmm.
So handguns, well, I don't know. I don't know what they consider a rifle to be. I guess would that be... Oh, by the way, I know that AR and AK are not considered assault rifles.
They're not assault rifles, and I know this too because everybody loves to correct me on this. But they do assault people, like they do mass damage. And you guys here, before they were prohibited, because Trudeau recently knocked them out, and I know there's a lot of people in Canada that are pissed off about that and they don't like it. But again, go to a shooting range to shoot it, fine, to see what it's like. But here's another stipulation. In order to own one, or prior to be able to own a weapon of that magnitude, we aren't allowed clips of 100 megs. We're talking minimal. And in order to maintain that weapon, or to even allow somebody to possess that weapon, you have to have 2 different firearm licenses. And the second one that you have to get goes through a even further extensive criminal record check and mental health check. If there's been anything that has been marked in your history as being in some way as breaking the law, or violence, or mental instability, or even depression for that matter, you can't own that weapon. You're not allowed to have it. Now, if you do pass the criminal record checks and the mental health checks, and it usually takes about 2 months, if not 3, in order for it to finally be cleared, and you are allowed to have that weapon, you are only allowed to have that weapon in the trunk of your car from your home, not loaded, drive to a shooting range, shoot it at the shooting range, and drive directly home. You're not allowed to stop at a gas station, a convenience store, a grocery store. If they catch you doing that, they will revoke your weapon and you're banned. You're never allowed to have one again. That's how strict it is here for those types of weapons.
I'm gonna actually backtrack on that. And according to this gun website, an AK is an assault rifle. Is classified as an assault rifle, semi-automatic, full auto, available in the US. And AR is a sport utility rifle, semi-automatic. Full automatic is available. Fully automatic is available in the US. It's a semi-automatic, but you can make it fully automatic.
You can make it fully automatic. This is the problem. Again, what is the purpose of these weapons? They are designed to create and to inflict mass destruction and to kill.
But I hunt with it. I hunt with my automatic rifle.
Okay, you're going to damage the meat. What are you hunting for? Are you hunting for sport? Are you hunting for food? Or I mean, again, my dad's a hunter. You don't want to use a gun that's going to blow a deer into a bazillion pieces. An AR-15, an AK-47. Do you know the damage that does to the human body or a living species? It obliterates them. It liquefies them pretty much.
So anyone who's saying, but I use my AR, my automatic, to hunt, I really, truly, if you're going to make that statement, I want to know where you hunt, what you hunt.
Yeah, exactly.
How many times you hunt. Why would you need an automatic? And if you're hunting like birds, they're gonna disintegrate. I mean,
well, again, most animals will. The damage you do, most people hunt, they can hunt for sport, fair, but hunting for like game.
But an automatic weapon for hunting, that's what I don't understand. Why do you need something that's going to continuously go? You know, that you don't have to, you're just firing round after round.
So here's the thing, in Canada, you can't hunt with an automatic weapon like that. You're not allowed. It literally goes to a shooting range or it goes home, and people who are military own those weapons for the most part. I know lots of people that have them and they like their guns and they like the sport, you know, fine. But they make the criteria and the hoops to jump through far more superior, significant, and difficult to own that weapon versus the US, where this is the part I don't get. It's illegal to drink a beer until you're 21, but you can go buy a semi-automatic weapon that can cause mass destruction and kill multiple people at once. How? Where's the logic in that? Oh, wait, there isn't any. Because the n.r.a. will always have more power than the US government, and it's mind-blowing.
Wait a minute. Cars kill people, but they're not outlawing cars.
Okay. Yeah, that's a great argument. I think, thank you, Jody, because I had somebody give me that one day when so I had another business other than being a therapist, and it was a network marketing business based in Utah. So all my US friends from Utah, open carry state, respect all of them, love them to death. But one of my account managers said, after the Vegas shooting, the mass shooting in Las Vegas at the country concert, what is the purpose of this weapon? And she even said, please go easy on my Canadian friends, because we just get so frustrated because we're like, it's not a hard concept to get. It can be fixed. But then I had that person say, oh, you Canadians, get off your fucking high horse, and started, it's no different than getting in a car accident with a drunk driver. And I was like, hey, smart one. When was the last time fucking somebody killed somebody in a drunk driving car accident that wiped out 30 people in 2 seconds? Never. Or unless it's a bus accident, which is rare. No, it's not the same thing. How can
guess what?
No logic.
Guess what? You get a DUI, your license can be suspended. You're not supposed to be driving.
Yep. Yeah. But again, a car doesn't do the mass destruction to that many people in that period of time based on drunk driving. Again, no logic. That's not a logical argument. That's not a rational argument.
Okay, but if you want to say, why don't we take cars off the street? It's like what we're doing with DUIs is hopefully getting that person out of the car.
Exactly.
Okay, let's get that person to not have a gun.
But a DUI, again, you're drinking and driving. The destruction you cause, and it's fatal in a lot of cases, is tragic and awful, but it's not going in and driving into a fucking school and killing 36-year-olds. Yes, people have used vehicles as weapons. People do kill people with vehicles and have driven into streets or parking, or sidewalks. But it's still, in comparison to shootings, not as common.
Now in California, we do have the strictest, or one of the strictest, are some of the most restrictive laws in the United States. And then people will say, oh, but you've had mass shootings there. Yeah, we have, because our population is also a lot higher than anywhere else. So we're the fifth largest economy. But
again, like having strict gun laws there, fine, but people can cross state lines.
That's what I was
crossing a country. You're not crossing a border. You're simply, somebody could come from Colorado or Utah. To California, where, again, the fact that you can walk into a Walmart and buy a semi-automatic weapon with as much ammunition as you want with no background check or no license or nothing, but you can't even go buy a beer because you're not 21. Again, what
and you can't vote because you're not 18 and you're not registered. You've got to be registered to vote. And to register to vote, we need to see your ID as well.
Mm-hmm.
You don't need that with a gun.
Seems
in California, you have to have a 5-year firearm safety certificate. You have to submit an application to the state. You have to pass a written test proctored by the Department of Justice, certified instructor, and let's see, is required for the sale, delivery, loan, or transfer of any firearms. Handguns sold by dealers must be California legal by being listed on the state roster of handguns certified for sale, the roster which requires the handgun manufacturer to pay a fee, and on and on and on. And there's a 10-day waiting period. California has no provision in its state constitution that explicitly guarantees an individual's right to keep and bear arms.
See? That's like Canada, same thing. Nobody has the right. Basically, anybody can revoke or take or whatever. But again, the waiting period's a lot longer here. And again, it's not a matter of a population issue, because if India can have billions of people in their population and children are not dying by guns in mass shootings because they have laws in place or regulations in place and control in place, and yes, there's more poverty and whatever, doesn't matter, then your argument about population goes right out the window.
But we can also say, like, additionally, California heavily restricts. I love California. People hate it. I love California. Heavily restricts the sale and possession of other items regarded as dangerous weapons, including but not limited certain knives, swords, clubs, explosives, fireworks, bows and arrows, slingshots, spears, and nunchucks. So they don't, it's not like we're only discriminating against guns. We're trying to get all weapons.
Yeah, and violence decreasing. And this huge thing where so many people have said, oh, supply teachers with guns and, fight guns with guns. Again, where the F is the logic there? So let's just talk about this from a psychological perspective for just a second, Dr. Larman, because literally, where is this coming from? Again, why are the American people so hell-bent on let's just load everybody up with guns because that'll solve the problem, where everywhere else in the world, everybody can see it as being violence is like doubling up on the violence or putting hands or guns, can't even speak, guns into the hands of every single person to commit. How is that making it better? It's making it worse. We can all see that, but yet some American citizens don't see it that way.
Well, because everybody also thinks that they are the ones. Man, if I was there, I would have shot that person. Man, if I was there, they wouldn't have got past me because I have a gun.
That sounds pretty narcissistic and egotistical to me.
It is super selfish and egotistical, and that's what the United States has sadly become. Mm-hmm. But to say that there are so many things. When I worked in the prison, they had us go through this training. It was pretty cool, actually, where you have a mock gun. It's not a real gun, but then you have to shoot at, do you shoot? Do you not? Who is innocent? Who is not? It's not as easy as you think. No. There was one scenario where the guy opens the door and he has a gun and he's holding it to someone's head, a woman's head. And it's like, do I shoot him? He's like, I'll shoot her as soon as you shoot me. It's like a dead man trigger or whatever. So he puts the gun down, everything's all good. And then he turns around and shoots her anyways. So you can't say, I know this is what I'm going to do. And there was a mass shooting in Buffalo at the supermarket. Yeah. Guess sadly who got killed was the armed security guard.
Yeah.
Who was trained to use that weapon. You have people saying, I'm not even fucking trained, but I've shot at the firing range. So I would take that person out in a heartbeat. I would go in the back door and shoot them in a heartbeat. It's not that simple. If you've ever been in one of those situations, it is not that simple.
That's a lot of cheap talk until you're in the situation when your adrenaline's pumping and you're, like you have no idea what you would really do. But again, it's a pretty bravado and pretty bold statement to say, I just go knock them off or I'd pop them off first, right? No, you wouldn't. And you sound like a barbaric idiot to the rest of the world. No offense. Again,
and a good guy with a gun is going to get
my frustration starts to come out. So I'm going to try to remain as chill and as not whatever is possible. But it is pretty infuriating when you're watching innocent babies die all over the world, and people for that matter, any life, doesn't matter, child's life, an adult life, whatever. It's not necessary. And the sickest part is is what drives this is not only the fear. And when I say psychology, I wanted to talk about that's the fear mentality mixed with the ego that is going to continue to perpetuate this problem. We, as a Canadian and my fellow like Australians, wherever around the world, don't have that fear because of the laws and the regulatory dispositions. In Australia, when they had the mass shooting, guess what? The government took the guns away, and they've never had a mass shooting ever since.
In the United States, I think, and we're gonna get shit, I'll get shit for this, I don't care.
No.
I think that in 2016, with the election of Donald Trump, hate and aggression and all the isms and phobias and all of that were made to be okay. We're allowed to be loud and proud. And along with that came, because of all this racism, anti-Semitism, homophobic, Islamophobic, all of that is the xenophobia and the fact that I need to carry my gun to protect myself because of all of these immigrants, all of these, what did Trump say? They poisoned the blood.
But what is he doing, Jody, right there? He's perpetuating fear.
I was just going to say fear mongering.
Fear mongering. And he's purposely doing that to target, again, a certain demographic of US citizens that feed into that really are fearful. Because really what this comes down to, folks, is ignorance. I hate to say it, but it really is ignorant. And it's sad because it's not needed, right? Donald Trump, along with many politicians like that are not great politicians out there, that feed on fear and that perpetuate fear and fearmonger is exactly what keeps people in a state of fear. And it's intense fear of the other person. So another argument is that, well, if you take all the guns away from the good people, then the bad people have the guns. And then what? Now we have nothing to defend ourselves. No, well, yes. And that is a fair statement. That is huge fear, and it's real. And I get that. But if you take them away from everyone, right? And make them illegal, or make it so that there's so many hoops they have to jump through, or put them on the black market for thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars, where most of the time these shootings are happening where people wouldn't be able to afford a weapon of that stature, or the ammunition. Chris Rock said it the best years ago in his stand-up comedy. He's like, I like guns, don't take the guns away. He's like, make a bullet $50,000.
Yeah.
Because it's true. Like when you think about it, make ammunition super expensive, where nobody and your average Joe out there can't afford that. It's going to decrease a lot of the ongoing violence.
And we have here in the United States our Constitution. Now, the Second Amendment.
Oh, God.
Second Amendment says no free government was ever founded or preserved its liberty without uniting the characters of the citizens and the soldiers in those destined for the defense of a free state, such as a well-regulated militia composed of the freeholders, citizens, and husbandmen who take up arms to preserve their property as individuals and their rights as freedmen. Now, what that means, a well-regulated militia simply meant that the process for activating, training, and deploying the militia in official service should be efficient and orderly, and that the militia itself should be capable of competency executing battlefield operations. But the NRA, because we have the wonderful NRA, which is probably one of the most powerful, if not most powerful, bodies in the country.
It is. And it has more power than the US government. And that's exactly why you're in the situation.
The NRA, who says, no, it means that everybody and their brother and sister and child should be able to carry a fucking gun to protect themselves.
Yep. No, I'm sorry, people, but that's what's killing innocent children. Again, when you look at the outcome, regardless of your constitutional rights, the Second Amendment, whatever it is, again, if this was such, if you guys had such a valid point, or the US had such a valid point, or the government had, and the NRA had such a great point, why is it that no other country around the world follows the same protocols? Why is it that everybody else sees it differently but you? So in the world of mental health, as Dr. Larman and I are very well, usually when you become the common denominator and everybody else is seeing you as kind of the outsider, you're the problem, not everybody else.
Most, if not all, of the people that I talk to that are all into guns, they always literally say my Second Amendment right. Because it is my Second Amendment right. That's why I have a gun, because it is my Second Amendment right.
Because it's a right, again, but this goes against, again, sociocultural, like, again, when you look at somebody who has ASPD, antisocial personality disorder, okay, they don't conform to social norms. They don't follow the law. They just basically, they feel like they can do whatever the fuck they want. That's really predominantly what that disorder is about, and violating the rights of another human. When you go take the life of another human, is that not violating the right of that fucking human life?
But I have a right to protect myself.
But your constitutional right that you have a right to protect yourself, but that's a completely contradictory to what actually happens. You're not protecting yourself when it falls into the hands of a person who goes and shoots people that have mental health issues, or not even that.
Sorry. And this is I'm fired up right now because this also pisses me off. A well-armed militia. And how many times have you heard there was someone in, I believe, Texas, because Texas is a stand your ground state. I think Florida might be as well. So a lot of these places are, I'm not sure, but stand your ground means I don't even have to ask questions. It's like a shoot first, ask questions later, because this is my home.
Is that super smart?
Yeah. And there was a shooting, and I should have this stuff written down, but I'm just right now to look it up. There was a shooting where the neighbors, the one female neighbor didn't like, I think she was Hispanic or white. She didn't like the black female and the neighbors. So she was always complaining about the kids, and they like threw something that went into her yard. So they went to, and she got all pissed off. So the lady, and if I'm incorrect about these details, that doesn't matter. What matters is the lady went with her kid to go get the stuff and tell her to kind of leave her kids alone, and knocked on the door, and the lady shot her through the door and killed her. Now, how is that fucking stand your ground? I was afraid then you don't open the door.
But afraid of what? A woman and a kid? See, this is where they're taking it out of context of what it was really for. Protecting yourself doesn't mean shooting a woman and her kid. How's she a threat to you?
And then there was the poor little black boy who on his way home went to get his brother or something, and went to the wrong door. And the man, an elderly man, shot him through the door. Yeah, or did he shoot him through the door? Or did he open the door? I don't remember.
The Second Amendment and your constitutional rights have more power than human life. They basically, but that's the sad reality. It's saying that just because I have this right, I'm going to use it. And I don't give a fuck about the life of another human being, because that's what it really comes down to. And
if you they both. And then there was a girl, I think she was an Uber Eats or a Grubhub or Postmates, that pulled into the wrong driveway, went to pull out, and they shot and killed her. And their excuse is always, I was afraid.
Fear.
Of what?
Again, fear though. And because of that fear that's embedded and ingrained in your DNA and in your genetics, I swear to God, because this has been an ongoing problem since the Civil War. Am I correct? Or even, yeah. Yeah. That's a long time. It's ingrained in you, the fear. And so that keeps you, and ingrained, again, brainwashing. I need a firearm. Afraid of what? So when you don't have the firearm there, you don't have the fear. And I'll tell you this as an example, because it was a while back where a guy was stabbed at a Starbucks downtown Vancouver by a mentally ill person. And it was because the guy simply came out, he was with his kid, and he said, can you please not vape around my kid? Because, he's vaping in a Starbucks. And the guy turned around and stabbed the guy. So clearly the guy was not, all there, whatever, just a random act of violence. And it killed the guy. And of course, when the next shooting happens in the US and I get on my platform and I'm talking about, I get a bunch of, of my American comrades come on and say, what about that stabbing? That guy wouldn't have had a chance if somebody had a gun to defend themselves. No, the damage by the knife would have been done long before you can pull out a gun and be like, boom, you're dead.
And with a knife, you're going to get one person, maybe if
One
you're
person
doing
dead.
this,
Yes. And it's not to say, yes, it's an act of, but a gun and placing guns in the hands of all the people just creates a bigger problem, which we don't have because of the laws. Now, I had lots of people comment. One woman just said, but no, like, what about you walking down a street and like, how do you defend yourself? And aren't you afraid if your mom's walking down the street and, what if it was your mom getting stabbed? Wouldn't you want to defend her? And I was like, see, we don't have that problem here because we don't have that fear. I'm not in fear of my mom walking down the street, in fear for her life, because nobody carries a gun. We don't, unless you're law enforcement, nobody fucking randomly just carries a gun. It's not allowed. It's just not. And if you do, then you have to have a license. I had another person that came up and visited, and she just was shocked I didn't have a handgun in my purse. She's like, you don't carry a handgun. I'm like, the thought of carrying a gun scares me, where the thought of not carrying a gun scares you. See the difference between like the fear that it just doesn't exist. I said, having a gun in my purse, that would terrify me. Why would I need one? No. And yes, anybody could attack me, jump at me, rape me, do whatever. If I'm not in a public, like, just use common sense. Don't walk by yourself late at night, or don't, it just, again, no, because nobody is armed with a weapon of that magnitude. It's just not what we do. So the fear isn't there. So no, I do not fear the life of my mother. But unfortunately, if you're born in the US, this is what's ingrained and you're born into, and the fear is there. It's there.
Before people are like, anyone who got this far is like, oh my God, she was so wrong. I have to say, I have to clear up. It was in Kansas City. The teenager went to the wrong house. He is still alive. He shot him, but he is still alive. But it was in New York that the food delivery person went into the wrong driveway and pulled out. She got killed.
Right.
So just
And
gotta.
yeah. And what about the little 3-year-old that pulls out the handgun in my mom's purse and shoots her in the middle of Walmart? Again, this is what happens because you're allowed to have them. You would just never hear of that here.
The other day, oh my God, was it was not that long ago. It was in December. And somehow it came up in my email feed. And so I read it, and like little kids were bouncing on a bed in the parents' house, and the dad was outside, mom was somewhere, and one of them found a gun that wasn't locked up, was loaded, and shot himself in the face and killed himself.
Mm-hmm.
I have heard way too many of little kids in the backseat of the car get the gun, shoot the mom, shoot themselves.
Road rage. Kids getting
road rage. How many? I've heard too many times. This is what scares me in California, because it's happened a couple of times. And the people weren't from California. When they found them, they weren't from California, where there was road rage on the freeway and people driving, and the person shoots and it kills the little kid. That's happened twice, I read, in the back of the car.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I see road rage. My son and I were driving home from Disneyland the other day, and there was lots of room in the freeway, and this car just comes up and almost runs me off to get in front of me. There was no one behind me, no one in front of me. And I was like, fuck. And then I see him go and push another car out of the lane. And then those two cars were just up and down the freeway at each other. And I'm like, I told my son, there's a high patrol up there. Hopefully he sees them. But I told my brother, because my brother gets road rage, I'm like, people are fucking shooting people. Mm-hmm. You don't know anymore. When I worked in reception center at prison, there were inmates that were in there for road rage.
Yeah, see? So yeah, the state of New Mexico, when I went to go visit a friend in Albuquerque a few years ago, and we were driving, and same thing, there was an incident where we got cut off or something, whatever. And I'm like, oh my God, don't you just want to rage at that person or flip them the bird or something? And she's like, oh God, you don't do that here. You'll get shot and killed. I'm like, what? She's like, yep, just last week, a 3-year-old got killed because somebody in road rage. And I'm like, oh my God.
Because they feared for their life that they needed a gun.
Well, they're just angry. And so they have it there. And they get to do that again, because there's no regulatory anything like the state of California, great, you guys have that, but what about the rest of the states where they have very little or very minimal? Or then again, you get into the whole political side of it, you know, even if, and Jody, we talked about this before, and you know, what are your thoughts on this? You know, I've thought before, I'm like, until it happens to somebody that is higher up in the NRA or one of the corrupt politicians or whatever, because it's a corrupt system, it's all about money and power. You know what happens to them? Their grandkid is part of a mass shooting, or their son or their daughter or whatever. Do you think that is going to be when it stops this madness? No. And what does that tell you about the people at the top making these decisions and their psychopathology?
And this is scary to me. In California, a California law forbidding residents of the state from carrying guns in most public spaces has once again been blocked from taking effect, at least for now. On Saturday, the Ninth Court of Appeals, this past Saturday, ruled against last week's decision to allow the law to temporarily go into effect in 2024. The law, sorry, this just pisses me the fuck off. Sorry. The law signed by Governor Gavin Newsom, which I love. People hate him again. They say that the election he had 2 recalls that he passed, that we voted to keep him in, and he won re-election. And people are like, it's rigged, it's rigged. Get the fuck out of California. Anyways, the law, I'm digressing, but the law signed by Governor Gavin Newsom in September, known as SB2, would have banned Californians, including those with concealed carry weapon permits, from carrying firearms in 26 public places, such as parks, sports stadium, hospitals, and houses of worship. And it was blocked right now. So the law was passed that you cannot carry into a fucking amusement park, into sports venues, into hospitals and houses of work. Why the fuck do you need a gun in those places in the first place?
You don't.
Why? And so the law passed, and now it's coming under, it's been blocked, and it's going to the fucking Court of Appeals, and they've blocked it until further, wherever farther up it goes, probably to the Supreme Court.
Well, what's driving this, Jody? What do you think is driving this? Do you think it's fear? Do you think, like, what is really the pinnacle driving force behind people wanting to combat some of these, you know, regulatory systems coming into play here? What do you think?
Honestly, this is my personal feeling. Living in California for all of my life, I'm oldish, and I've seen such a change, especially, and I keep bringing up 2016, but especially since COVID and all of that. We have become such a country of my rights, my rights, my rights, and I don't give a fuck about anybody else. I don't care. Just like when it came to wear a mask to protect other people, it's not going to help me, so why would I do it? And in California, I don't even know who is blocking it, because a lot of times it's interests that aren't the people, but like the n.r.a. will file, or, you know, other entities will file it, not the people who voted it in or who wanted it.
Of course not.
We have become I'm shocked, in all seriousness, that we have become such a selfish country. Like, I don't give a fuck about your safety. I care about mine. Did you watch, I think we talked about this, what is it called? The show that was just on, that had the really weird ending, that
Leave the World Behind.
Leave the World Behind. When Kevin Bacon was like, hey, it's like, pretty much, I protect my family in times like this. We don't know who the enemy is. And this is what they do. They pit one against the other. Until we become divided.
It's perpetuated fear.
Yes. And that's what's happening. It's becoming, why should I trust you? I have my best interest in mind. You don't have my best interest in mind. Instead of, I don't have your best interest in mind either. We have become
again, what happened to belonging to a society that has rules and social construct and laws? See, because let's go back in time a little bit here. Okay, so Jody's making a really good point, and that is, the selfishness of the US in general, and it's all about everybody's own individual rights. And what backs this up is the Second Amendment and your constitutional rights, where again, nobody else in the world and any other society and any other country, we don't follow, we don't do that. And yet I know some Americans will come at me with, well, you guys are a bunch of communists. I don't live in fucking communism. I live in Canada. It's a pretty free country. Like, and yes, our politician and our leader, Justin Trudeau, is the biggest fucking idiot on the planet. Like, he's the worst leader we've ever had ever in Canadian history. But what's really interesting is that because we're a smaller country, larger land mass, but smaller country, US politics are more important, because whatever happens in the US happens to us, right? We're very closely linked to the US, and whatever goes, and our affiliation is so tight and so strong that when you guys have your US election, we're sitting at the edge of our seats. When Donald Trump got elected, it was scary. Now, I'm going to respect both sides of this argument here, and I'm not going to give my take on Trump because I'm Canadian and I don't feel like I have the right to, okay, just to respect my fellow American citizens. But as a human, we know that Donald Trump is full on a narcissist, like NPD up the ass. Okay, so it's not hard for any, mental health professional to be able to figure him out, and 90% of the population as well. And again, but whatever happens in the US follows in Canada. But around the world, what happened to social forum and construct where we have rules and regulations to follow? I watched a special the other night on George Carlin because I love him. And I often laugh. And it's funny because somebody even said it on this documentary. If he was alive today, what would he be saying with what's going on in the world and how upside down our world is, with now going so far to the left, and that everybody's extreme in their own rights and nobody has to, people can identify as a fucking dog now if they want to. Like, it's just so ridiculous. Okay. And with that comes the danger of where we're at, where everybody thinks that their rights are so important and override law and abiding by social construct. So when you think about Carlin in his early career in the 60s, when he first got on television, he was fired from one of his jobs, or several, or a couple, for swearing, because guess what? It was illegal. They didn't allow you to use obscene language in public, on radio shows, on TV shows, in movies. It wasn't allowed. So society was forced to follow certain norms that, the government or higher power found to be inappropriate. Now people get to do whatever the fuck they want. And guess what that causes? Brings me back to Jody's point. Everybody has rights, and the rights go above and beyond everybody else's. That's not living as part of society. That's selfish, self-centered, egotistical, and incredibly narcissistic.
And what people don't understand is they don't like the government. That's fine. You want to be an anarchist? That's fine. But guess what? Even in anarchy, someone eventually becomes the leader.
Yes.
And they form may not call it government, but they form an administration, and there becomes rules and regulations.
Because we need it.
I was just saying, you cannot survive without rules and regulations. If you watch The Last of Us, did you ever watch that?
Yes.
They built this wonderful city with rules and regulations. Even in frickin', what is it, The Walking Dead, in all of those kind of apocalyptic stuff.
Yeah, they still have construct. Yes.
We need rules and regulations.
What happens when you don't have construct? You have chaos, and you have what's happening around the world, which is utter corrupt chaos. Let's go back thousands of years to biblical times, when there was no government or any, it was based on faith. Now, faith, this is a very personal topic, also very controversial for a lot of people, but what did it do? What did the Bible do? It created social construct that people had to follow some sort of hierarchy and adherence to a hierarchy that made rules so there wasn't fucking chaos.
And even in the Wild West, when everybody carried, there was usually duels. There was usually some decorum, and people weren't willy-nilly shooting.
No.
So we have to, when it comes from what are rights versus privileges, I think that line.
Yes, rights versus privileges. Rights versus privileges. When you get to the point where you think that you have a right that overrides another human life or thoughts or opinion of another person, we're in trouble. So again, the rest of the world, and not saying that based on different cultures and sociocultural differences and whatever, but there still is a level of decorum that keeps society constructed in a way where it flows and it works. And there's still laws. You live in a lawless world, then we really have something to fear. And that's exactly what you're making. That point you're making is if everybody puts their rights above everybody else's, you're running into chaos because nobody respects authority or laws or rules. Well, welcome to antisocial personality disorder. So that makes everybody a fucking psychopath then, right?
Which actually brings me right up into the next word. We got to wrap it up soon, but this brings me right up to the next thing is mental health and guns. I just want to say really quickly, every time there's a mass shooting, mental health, no. Statistically speaking, mentally ill people are more victim than perpetrator. And when mental illness, it's not to say that people that are mentally ill never commit any kind of crimes or shootings or anything. I'm not saying that. Usually it's someone who is psychotic, paranoid, schizophrenic, having a psychotic break. But typically, when firearms are used with a person with mental illness, it is most likely to be self-inflicted, to be suicide. So a mentally ill person typically uses the gun on themselves.
And not
or someone that they know, like a murder suicide and themselves. But as far as mass shootings go, really quickly, I want to say this, and we'll do a whole other podcast on this.
Yes.
But they're typically the victims, not the perpetrators. That being said, when the first thing that said is mental health, yet the first fucking social service that's cut, the budget, mental health. So you don't want to treat it, but you're going to blame it. So it is not the fault of mental health or mental illness, but if you're going to blame it, then fucking make treatment.
Yeah, that's a very good point. That's a very good point, Jody, because honestly, here's the deal too. Mental health is a universal problem.
Yes.
Okay. It's a global universal problem. You are never going to be able to get on top of mental health because based on genetics, biopsychosocial and environment and different things, you are never, ever going to be able to solve that problem versus guns. But again, here's the argument. Why is it that every other country around the world that has the same mental fucking health problems as some of the people in the US don't kill people and have these mass shootings?
And if mental health is such a problem with guns, why don't we regulate the ability to get guns?
Again, here in Canada, mental health check, even depression or anxiety, you would never be allowed to own a heavy artillery weapon. I'm going to even say any kind of weapon. I mean, really, for up here, there's sport, hunting and fishing and game and whatever, as well as most of the time people that hunt. My dad hunts, but he eats everything. He uses the animal. But an AR-15 would destroy that animal.
Yeah.
Right.
So what an AK,
again,
sure.
it makes no sense. And I mean, I've been to a shooting range. I've shot a handgun, and I don't particularly like guns. Like I mean, it was an interesting experience. I wanted to really understand, but shooting that AR-15 was terrifying. The thing's fucking loud. And when you're indoors, it's just really loud. But again, there's no purpose for a civilian to own that weapon ever. You want to have a handgun or a gun to protect yourself because you feel like you want to have one? Fine. But again, in order to own that weapon, there should be extensive protocols in place, classes,
For driving, you need driver's ed here. You need a test. You need to pass for your permit. Then you need to have driving lessons. And then you get a graduated permit based on your age.
Yeah, and this is common sense. This is, again, what kills me is how people can just go buy all this stuff and not have any of that. These mass shootings, again, when you look at as a whole, US is the only, and it's infuriating. And then the arguments you get back, and it's not blaming the civilians, it's the NRA and the government. Like, again, when I watched Obama, and I'm sorry, I'm just going to say it, I'll give my personal opinion here. I loved him. I know a lot of people didn't. That's fine. Whatever. You could see that the man had empathy and he had a heart. When Sandy Hook happened and he stood and cried, but his hands are fucking tied because he doesn't have control or power to change it because the NRA holds more power than he does. That's the sad reality. But you could tell he wanted to. He was heartbroken that being the politician. And no offense, but what was the poor guy going to do pulling the US economy out of the Bush administration? Anyway, I'm not going to get into the whole, but again, I'm a Canadian. I don't really have rights here. I'm going to just shut my mouth, but I'm just going to say Obama showed compassion. Where's Donald Trump showed any compassion for shootings?
Well, every time there's a mass shooting and you hear a Republican say thoughts and prayers.
Oh, it drives me crazy.
We don't need new gun laws.
Yeah.
Even the one that just happened. Even the one that just happened. I want to say it was Iowa. I don't remember. But Ron DeSantis, who is running for president, said, this is a state individual issue. This is not anything for the federal government. Yeah.
Wow. Again, and you hear the Republicans, oh, prayers and thoughts. Really? Saying that is such an invalidating statement and it's hypocrisy.
And when you see commercials for politicians and they're holding their guns, they're holding the ARs and AKs and they're shooting and it's all about guns. What
was one of the best documentaries I've ever seen.
Yeah.
And for those of you like Michael Moore are going to agree with Jody and I, brilliant. And that came out a long time ago. But yeah, let's open a bank account and get a revolver as a gift.
Or let's hey, we're gonna have our fundraiser drive for whatever, and you can raffle off a gun.
No, I can't. It's just barbaric. It's absolutely insane. And there was somebody else that had a really good argument with the shooting that happened in Jody, I think it was in Texas. It was the one that happened last year. It was a school shooting with young kids.
Oh, Uvalde?
Yeah. Yeah, that's the one. Okay. And that was when Roe versus Wade was happening at the same time. And so there was all this political debate about the abortion laws and the thing. Don't even fucking get me started on that. That's a topic because I'm sure we have lots to talk about on that one. But here's the deal. From, of course, Texas, heavy Republican state, where you've got church mixed with state, right? And this is what
so much for our Constitution of a separation of church and state.
It doesn't, no, not at all. But they're allowed to do that where they're pro-gun, but please don't kill a fetus. And one person called, I believe, a governor or some sort of political figure and got on the phone with him and just said, what about the 128-day-old fetuses or whatever? It amounted to kids being about 5 or 10 and saying, so you fight for them to be here, but then you allow guns to kill them. Where's your argument there? And it literally took the words out of the mouth of the politician. It was the most brilliant TikTok I saw. It was
they sit there and they say it's not about hunting, it's not about protection. When you see them shooting in the air, doing their commercials, there's a lot of politicians with their commercials, they're all about guns. And that is not about safety or hunting or protection. That's about owning a fucking gun.
Yeah, exactly. What is the point? Power, fear.
Yep.
Power and fear.
So on that note, we're gonna wrap it up.
So Dr. Lerman and I would really love to hear your guys' feedback. If you have some really good arguments here.
I don't want to hear my Second Amendment rights.
No, please, again.
If you're gonna say your Second Amendment rights, please explain, because I did what a well-armed militia is supposed to be.
Yep, she did. She made a very good point. So again, use logic with your argument. And if you have one, that seems to whatever be something that maybe else we can kind of look at in more detail further on.
Absolutely. And click the little bell up in the corner on YouTube. That'll notify you every time we drop an episode. You can email us at wcwycw1@gmail. If you want to have a civil discourse, if you have any logical, rational discussion, you can leave it in the comments on YouTube or anywhere. Like, subscribe, follow, all of that. Welcome to Bree. And we're so excited because we've got a lot of controversial stuff that we're going to talk about.
Yeah, that's where, you know, we've covered a lot of the abuse and the narcissism and stuff that, you know, that this is how this podcast was born. But, you know, Dr. Larman and I were talking and just figured that there's just so many other things that we can discuss that are like eye-opening and getting perspective from people and your take on it. If there's a topic that you feel that you want to really hear about, please let us know in the comments, because
Absolutely.
the more content, the merrier.
Wine suggestions, glass suggestions, because Brie doesn't have any. She needs to get
No, I need to get some good wine, some wine tumblers. Don't
good
worry.
alcohol and all of that. So aside from that, thank you so much. And yes, we are going to be controversial now.
Yes.
Hate it, love
Yes.
us. That's fine. Just watch.
Yeah. You just watch. Absolutely. I agree.
So,
All right. Cheers, everybody. Have a wonderful evening.